Hi there, I'm Birgit O'Connor and welcome to the World of Watercolor Painting podcast. Now, our goal is to keep you motivated, inspired, and just have fun. Now, if you've been following along with us, you know that in a previous episode we had a conversation with some students from the Rock, Sand, and Sea Glass course. What we did there was work with shadows, highlights, and giving objects shape. Today we're going to continue that conversation, but we're going to translate that into footprints on sand and keep it really simple. So let's get started and have some fun. So what I was thinking about is trying to show you this right here, something similar to that. And let me go through what I have here. I was thinking if there was a painting I could just transform. This is a big piece. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'll take a look at this. It's going to go like that. And I'm going to get some tape just to make it easier for me. This is a quarter sheet. I probably would have done it smaller, but if I do it smaller, then you're not going to really see anything. I've got a dirty palette there. Let's go ahead, tape all that. I could make it a little smaller. Oh, well. The only reason why I tape it is just because it makes cleaner edges and then it's like its own little frame, so you'll be able to see it better once we remove it. And I'm trying to decide, do I want to make it a vertical or horizontal? And it's not going to be a fancy painting. I'm just thinking, all right, we're going to have, just to get an idea, we're going to have our beach here. I'm going to have my ocean foam come through this, something like that. Okay, so we have an idea. I'm going to go with my ocean there, sand here, and I'm going to go ahead, put some sand color in there right now. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, just take some of this color. I'm going to, instead of spattering, because we don't need to do that right now, I'm just going to go ahead and get color on dry paper, use a little water, and if I have a French ultramarine blue blend, then it's naturally going to create a separation in there. Now I know I don't want to wait for all of this to dry. That's another thing that I'm thinking about. And what I could do for that little foam line is either use my brush like this, but then it's going to be really a nice straight edge, or if I wanted it more ragged, I could have a template of tape. So there's options that I could do. If I use a little more French ultramarine blue, then I'm going to get more of that separation in there. Actually, even if I use, I think, what is that? There's some Daniel Smith color. Is it a shadow violet? I think I've got that right there. I'm going to throw it in there. And why I'm putting that in there is so it can mingle and hopefully separate. So let's move it around. I'm going to let the excess run off. We just need some sand on there. We'll let that go in the other direction. And let that start to dry for just a second. And then I'm going to take a look and see what we've got here. Okay. Yeah, so let that water move. And I would like it to dry naturally, and the reason being is if I don't, it would flatten the color with the hairdryer. So now what I'm thinking about is I want to get some of that foam in there and that ocean. So let's let that start to dry. I'm going to see what color I have here. This looks like this is a Winsor Blue green shade. I'm going to just take it over there. Get some water in there, and then I'm going to go ahead and go wet on dry right now, just to be effective of what I need it to be right now. And to get a little more of that ragged edge or foam, I'm going to just hold my brush more horizontally. That could give me some foam. And then I'm going to go back in to the colors that I have over here. And let's see, let's try to get... So I just need to establish a foundation here for you. I'm using the dry brush technique through here. And I could take more time with it, but this will be fine. If I was doing a serious painting, I would take more time. This is going to puddle here, so I will have to dry that in just a second. And again, if I was doing something that I really wanted to be invested into it, I would just be a little slower than what I am right now. Let's take a look. I'd like more stuff happening over there. Let's get this extra water off. I'll take a little hake brush. Let's try to remove some of that extra water. And so again, if you were doing a serious painting, you might spatter some color on there. You'd take your time. And let's see, do we want to do that? Well, we could do a little bit of that. Let's take a toothbrush. That's going to dry. We'll come in a minute there. Let's get some sand on there. So you're using the rock technique if you want to. It's really wet, so it's just going to mingle more than separate. Lift a little color out. All right, I'm going to dry this. It's still damp in some areas, so we'll just work with it. And let's see, so we've got some blobs that are going to happen. Let's get back to that picture so I can take a peek. All right, also I'm thinking we need to have some wet sand. So this will be our dry sand, this will be our wet sand. And it's still damp in some areas, so we'll just work with it. And let's see, so we've got some blobs that are going to happen. Let's get back to that picture so I can take a peek. All right, also I'm thinking we need to have some wet sand. So this will be our dry sand, this will be our wet sand. And I should wait for it to dry. We're going to have these spots, but we're not. We're just going to go ahead and do it. And I'm thinking, do I want to use a 20 brush or a number 30? Do I want to use one that's a little stiffer or one that's a little softer and floppy? I'm going to use this one here, the number 30. And I'm going back into my color here. And you see that I just really mingled whatever was on the palette. And then I'm going to go ahead, this is going to be my wet sand. If you wanted a seashell or something like that in there, then what you would do is mask some of those little shells in there. Let's go ahead, go along the edge. Let's bring this up a little further, and if this is going to be my wet sand, I want more of a ragged edge. Let's see if I can make sure I can see what in the world is going on. So we have to build our foundation first. That's what I would be thinking. And I think maybe I went out a little too far there, but it's not that far. I should have tapered that a little bit more. So maybe what I'll do, so let's say we did that. I'm going to go ahead and try to lift a little bit out here. Let's see. See, that's because that area was still a little damp underneath, but that's okay. We're just going to make it work. So I'll bring this out a little bit further. That's what I'm going to do instead. Okay, and then let's try to get some of that color in the ocean. So I'm taking my number 14 blend brush, get more of the same color, just in a darker value, and I might add just a little bit of my mud here, just to tone it down a little bit. And then if I really wanted to, I could create either a dry brush technique, or I could take my stroke and tilt it a little more and try to capture the edge of the water, little waves. And what I could also do is actually turn my paper upside down, depending on where I want the that little wave. Let's take a look at it this way. Okay. So I have to have a painting so I can do the footprints. So I need a foundation. And then I think I might go a little bit darker. Let's see if we can just break this up a tiny bit. So when I would be actually thinking about doing the painting, I would work more with the detail through here to give the impression of the little foam. However you want to make it happen. So you can see there's quite a bit that goes into it before we can get into the footprints. So I'm going to go ahead and dry this, and then we'll try to put them in. Now this is 140, so it buckles, and in fact I just had a couple paintings that was on the 140. It really buckled. And how you would make it flat again is if you wet the back and then put it face down on a towel and apply even pressure, or what I ended up doing because it was continuing to buckle is I just ironed it. Let's look at how do I want to get some little footprints in there. I could either decide where I want them. Maybe I'll have an idea just to get some idea through here. Maybe I don't want to really pencil them in, otherwise it could be, so I'm just kind of touching the paper basically is what I'm doing, because that helps me get acquainted with it. And knowing that it's going to be a little larger here, and then as I go off into the distance, it's going to be smaller. So what I'd be thinking about is using a number 14 blend brush. I'm going to be using the brush stroke's going to make all the difference in the world. So let's go to a scrap piece of paper. And I'd be thinking about a basic footprint like that. All that is it depends on how you see the footprint. So it's just a brush stroke, or here I might change it like that. That would be all I'd be thinking of doing. Now the amount of water that I have in here is a little too much, so I need to make some stronger color with less water. So I'll let that puddle stay to the side, and then I'll bring it up here. Let's go ahead and get some color. I want it to be the same sand color, just in a darker value. I want to thank you for sticking around, and I know it's a long time. Okay, I'd like it to be a little cooler, so I'm going to get a little more blue. All right, so again, it's going to be in the brush stroke. If I try to draw it on, it could look a little might not look right. So what I want to try to do is maybe move my hand up the handle a little bit and just play with a stroke. So let's think about it here. I'm going to go ahead, maybe put it back there, and actually I should probably think about maybe doing a little bit of a smaller brush as we go off into the distance. And I think it would look also better on the 300. But that would be my approach to it. Let's take a look here. And we'll just say a wave came in and dissolved those over there. So that would give me the idea. Remember, we're playing with that brush stroke. And we could put in more. This area could go a little darker. I could let that dry. And what I could do is wash over it again. If I did, I would have to come back in and reapply a few little brush strokes there. So let's take some sand. And also it's going to dry lighter. So we have to evaluate it later. Let's get some sand in there just to break it up. You just need to develop it a little bit more. And since this color is not really dry, it could easily lift. So let me know, is this helpful for you? Are you getting the idea of the approach? So I'd like to hear from you. Let me know.
It was great to see how you could develop the picture.
So this would be how I would be thinking about it. And then like if we look at the actual photograph itself, we could always develop it more, but that would be the idea, the approach. So something similar to this. I mean, it's very elementary on what I have here, so it's not very developed.
That was a great help. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, goodbye everyone. Have a wonderful time painting. Thank you so much for joining us today, and if you'd like to be notified of any future episodes, make sure to subscribe to the channel. So until next time, have fun and happy painting.